It is 2 minutes late.
We're 120 seconds behind.
120 seconds behind the schedule. This is just absolutely out of control. I'm looking at a clock that's telling me it's 11:45.
So, pulling, obviously, air bike, right?
Yes.
There, how are you? On this one, list of nominees issue, I don't know if you want me to talk about it or if you want to talk about it.
You talk about it.
All right, somebody's just going to say that.
And I'll fill in.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority Board meeting for Thursday, July 27, 2017. It is 9:03 a.m. We are starting a little bit tardy this morning, but that's okay. We're going to get through it pretty quickly here. At this time, I would ask if... That's just... Miss Madam Mayor, would you lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Nat Caroselli. Here. Mr. John Farahi.
Yes.
Mr. Ed Lawson.
Here.
Chairman Bob Lucy.
Here.
Mr. Rick Murdoch. Here. Mayor Hillary Sheevey.
Here.
Mr. Bill Wood. Here. And Mr. John Vineyard is going to be absent today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. This time we were going to open, well, you will move to public comment. So comments heard under this item are limited to 3 minutes, and the public is encouraged to comment on all items, agenda items, as well as items not on the agenda during public comment. So I have a few members signed in this morning. First, I have Gail Miller. Miss Miller, if you will approach the podium. Yes, the podium right there. There's a little microphone behind the podium there.
I asked not to be first, but didn't work out.
Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. I'm not a good speaker, so I'll give it a try. I'm here to speak on behalf of Wild Creek Golf Course, and this will be brief. I live in the neighborhood. I have most of my life. I love that place. My family's loved that place. We've all played golf there forever. And I don't see the golf course from my house, but I do see it every day as I drive by. It's a beautiful, calming thing to see. It's beautiful for the community. And I hope you'll think long and hard before you give it to the school district. I feel that it is not a great place to put a high school for very many reasons, which many of you already know: traffic, noise, and other concerns. But even more than that, like I said, it is a beloved community golf course. It's public. The public can play it. A lot of people can't afford to play elsewhere, can't afford to live near a golf course in a lot of the areas of this community. And I just hope that the RSCVA will think about it and consider the fact that we love this golf course and we do not want to see it go. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Jeff Church.
Good morning, folks. My name is Jeff Church. I run a website, renotaxrevolt.com. renotaxrevolt.com. It's just been updated. I invite you to take a look. And I do appreciate this opportunity to speak to this group, as many groups I speak to. You guys are my favorite. Don't tell the others. And I'm here to speak today about the proposed new room tax, and obviously in opposition. There are very, very many legal issues with the bill, as I'll discuss. Tax, tax, tax. Fee, fee, fee. The ink is barely dry on WC1, and now they want more. There's a lot of issues to cover, and I have them in your handout if you'll please take a look. Now, I hope that your organization takes note of AB 375, that's the flood tax, and AB 379, and other tax increases passed in the last legislature. AB 379 is a statewide unlimited tax or fee increase with no required public vote, allegedly for parks and open space. But the one today that we want to discuss is AB 375, the flood tax. It's cause for concern as Reno gets taxed to death, and room tax has been mentioned number one under this AB 375. Room tax affecting mostly Reno to the benefit of a select group in Sparks. I was appalled to see the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce supported AB 375, just as they did WC1 and RTC5, the gas increase. The Chamber is not a 501c3 nonprofit. It is an advocacy group. And Trey Abney, who I do respect, is a paid lobbyist. Last I counted, I saw over 100 government agencies or persons listed as members of the Chamber. Way too much pro-tax influence for an organization that was once pro-business. Why does the city of Reno show 14 different memberships in the Chamber? I also note there's a new sheriff in town known as the Real Chamber of Commerce you may want to check out. But yet, the Chamber gets to appoint one member to this new AB 375 committee. We already pay sales tax for flood control. Sparks can always use general fund money for the affected area, or they can create their own tax district, or otherwise mitigate, or move. The biased committee meets very soon. We must act now. The law even allows the imposition of fees without any public vote. Unless we head this off entirely, it'll pit special interest against the common taxpayer, and we'll all lose. Whether it's a room tax, property tax, car fees, real estate fee, or some other tax, Reno is TEA. Taxed enough already. Noteworthy too, and I'll sum up quickly, is in the aftermath of WC1 sales tax increase implemented April 1st, we have new figures out from the State Department of Taxation. Taxes are down, car sales are down 8.6% in Washoe County thanks to the 8.265 sales tax, as opposed to 7.1 in Lyon County. The voters spoke with their wallets.
Mr. Church, you've hit your 3 minutes. If you could wrap it up, please.
I will have 15 seconds. Washoe, statewide sales taxes up 5.6%, Washoe County down 3.8%. Car sales in Reno down 8.6%, while Carson's up 20%, Fernley up an amazing 47%, and even people that drive out to Humboldt, 30.5% increase in car sales. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Next, I have Mr. John Hesse.
Hello. Okay. I'm John Hesse, and I'm here to speak on the Save Wild Creek project. I've lived there for 40 years. Got there when the golf course was first built. PGA golf course, very proud of it. Gatlin Brothers had the Gatlin Open there. It's a great golf course. I haven't played it that much because I'm not that good of a golfer, but anyway, getting back to saving Wild Creek, just a lot of action now going around that they're going to be building a new high school there. And I'm not opposed to new high school, I'm just opposed to the location of the high school. There are just a lot of other locations that I don't think have been considered. The first one is up at the top, at the backside of Wild Creek. There's BLM property up there. In fact, there was some BLM property that went to the school board, and it went for $10 an acre. I wish I could buy land for $10 an acre. Anyway, that'd be a good place for a school because it's right between Sun Valley and Sparks and Spanish Springs High School, and that's who you want to attract. So instead of running everybody down Whittakin and Sullivan and El Rancho, you could build it up there at the top. You could get it out of the flood area. It would be a lot less hassle to build. I know we've saved Wild Creek, had already had to get legal counsel, so we're going to be in a battle with whoever owns this. I hope it's not you guys because I like this group, but anyway, it's going to be the school board or it's going to be Washoe County, but there is going to be a battle. When you figure a high school that is going to accommodate 2,500 students with the extra traffic, I just can't. It's tough getting out of the driveway now. I'm still working, and going to work and coming home, I see a lot of people. I don't want to see them, but I do see a lot of them because we're all parked waiting for cars to move. Again, it just is the wrong place. It's in a flood plain. We've seen it place flood before, and not from the Ore Ditch. And it's not that a high school couldn't be built there, but the cost of it is going to be such an overrun. I'm just a high school graduate, but boy, when I see telephone poles and not telephone poles, utility poles that have to be moved, and I'm in the insurance business, I know what flood insurance costs and what flood insurance is going to cost somebody over there. I don't understand. It's just the wrong place for a high school. Anyway, if you could see your way to looking at a couple other locations, again, I'm not against a high school, but it's just in the wrong location. I appreciate your listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hesse. Next, I have Darlene Hesse.
Well, good morning, everyone. I feel like I'm getting better at speaking every week and maybe sometimes twice a day. But anyway, I'm here to save Wild Creek too. I've lived there 40 years, and it's a beautiful place, and it's really a very nice golf course. It's been run down. It hasn't been taken care of. And I'm very sorry that I wasn't a golfer and wasn't over there, because I would have put up a big fuss over the golf course, the care of it, the painting, the blacktop. Anyway, it's a treasure. It's a treasure, and I don't want to see it go. And the expense for the school is just unbelievable. I cannot believe that you could take a $30 million PGA golf course, tear it down, and build a school that no one really knows how many millions it will cost. I saw the Esther Bennett School. That's very nice. It looked like a lot of property was up there. For $10 an acre, I would say that would be a good place to put a high school too. I'm very sorry. I hope you people reconsider this. It's not a good thing. And Jerry Gross sat in our front room and told us that this was always a recreation area. It should remain a recreation area. It's an open area. It's a pleasure to be there. You're going to lose a lot of animals. Besides, all the people are going to be so disappointed. And I hope that you reconsider this and go to a more economical part. We should be saving this money for the kids' education, not spending it frivolously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hesse. Next, I have Wesley Griffin.
RSCVA board members, I've got a little entertainment for you, hopefully. Maybe some of you recall some of Aesop's fables. Here's one, The Lion and the Mouse. Once a lion was asleep, a little mouse began running up and down him. He soon awakened the lion, who placed his huge paw on him and opened his big jaws to swallow him. "Pardon, O king," cried the little mouse. "Forgive me. I shall never forget it. Who knows but when I might be able to do you a turn someday." The lion was so tickled at the idea of a mouse being able to help him that he lifted his paw and let him go. Some time later, the lion was caught in a trap, and the hunters who desired to take him alive to the king tied him to a tree while they went to search for a wagon to carry him on. Just then the little mouse happened to pass by. Seeing the sad plight in which the king was, he went up and soon gnawed the ropes around the king, a beast. "Was I right?" said the little mouse. Well, I'm sure most of us don't have too much trouble figuring out the moral to this. Little friends may prove to be great friends. Some of us today are in high positions. Some of you today are in high positions. You're on this board. The RSCVA has a lot of power in our community. But there could come a time when you're going to need us. And you need to think of some of the little friends that are going to be affected by this action. How about 2,000, maybe soon to be 4,000 first tee children that want to play golf? How about the Sparks golf team? How about the Hug golf team? How about many of your employees who have retired and will not otherwise be able to afford to play golf? What about people, older people that use the executive course there, that are not able to get around other golf courses? Little people can be great friends, and little people tend to remember these things. So I would encourage you all to reconsider and save Wild Creek. For those of you who are interested, I've got a bumper sticker for you. I would invite you to our website, savewildcreek.com. But come and hear what some other people are saying. I think you'll be wiser for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Next, I have Miss Liz Griffin.
Can you all hear me? Yes, ma'am. Good, thank you. Obviously, I'm here to represent Wild Creek also. I have some figures I'd like to go over with you all. I understand, if I understand correctly, the reason for divesting Wild Creek is it doesn't make money. Nothing I've run into so far with regard to swimming pools, local parks, and so forth has told me, that better? Thanks. That they make money, okay? I've got some figures here that I brought in, and I'm not picking on the RSCVA, this is just fact. Per your figures, the Reno Sparks Convention Authority, Reno Sparks Convention Center, is operating at a loss of $1.1 million. The National Bowling Stadium operating at a loss of almost $1.5 million. Reno Events Center, $187,500. Reno Sparks Livestock Events Center, $715,000. Wild Creek, $243,000. Why are you picking on Wild Creek? I would submit to you that all of these entities should be examined with regard to their loss. We know that most public parks, if any in this area, actually make money. Recreation, other than involving gambling and revenue, does not make money. I don't think it's realistic to expect Wild Creek to make the kind of money that you're expecting. The other thing that I would say is, why aren't you looking into trying out private management of the golf course? I have a personal opinion about private management versus government management. So if you would think about that, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Next, I have Miss Kim Tracy.
Good morning. I don't have anything prepared, so I'll fumble through this. But I, too, am here for Wild Creek. I was reading the RSCVA mission statement recently, and as I understand it, the board is here to promote tourism and people coming to the Reno area. I think a golf course that was recently highlighted in a national BPOE Elks magazine is one good way to bring people to our area. I don't golf any longer. I golfed years ago, but I haven't golfed for a long time. But I do live in the Wild Creek area, and I agree that we're going to have major traffic problems. The golf course is in a flight path. It's also in a floodplain. And as we've all mentioned, there seem to be a lot of other places that we could put a high school. Nobody objects to a new high school, but where the high school location is a big objection to a lot of us. I don't understand why we'd want to put a school where we have to deconstruct something that's already there and could potentially make money. I agree as well that we should consider putting out the golf course to bid and get it under private management, as I believe was done with Sierra Sage, which is now no longer in the red and making money. That's a thought that we could promote. I think that as someone who has lived in multiple other cities around the country, one of the things I've always enjoyed about some of the best ones, and I would say like Denver, Tulsa, As you drive through those cities, there are multiple green spaces, parks, golf courses. Reno is lacking in that, and I love Reno. I grew up in Susanville. I love Reno, but Reno is not one of the most attractive cities that I think, being realistic and honest, that we can all say it's not one of the most attractive cities to drive through for people who come here to visit. Green spaces add to the beauty of a city. That Wild Creek Golf Course is a public green space, and I think that there are other better locations to consider for a high school than something that's already open, up and running and operating, and could be operating at a profit if it's revisited. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Darla A. Lee.
Good morning. My question to the board is why the Wild Creek Golf Course, or at least the most popular portion of the course, is being sacrificed for a new high school, which could be built in a much more suitable location. And I feel the transparency of the planning of this project was sadly missing, at least to the public. In my case, in any case, the popularity of golf, like any sport, can go up and down. But right now, golf is resurging among young people and seniors. As mentioned, the First Tee program in Washoe County helps 2,000 students learn the golf game, and many retirees enjoy the benefits of golf also. But they need a place to play, and the Wild Creek was designed to provide a place to learn for beginners and also to challenge the more advanced players. With the closing of Rosewood, DeAnzio, and Northgate in recent years, the availability and affordability for playing golf has greatly decreased. The affluent water depth that Wild Creek has shouldered alone for many years is within sight of completion, and once paid off, the golf course can, and I'm sure will be, profitable again, and most likely the cost of playing there could even be further reduced. Not everyone can afford a private membership, so to destroy Wild Creek Golf Course, I believe, is a great disservice to the Sparks community. It's also the loss of green space that concerns me. Wild Creek Golf Course is surrounded by many housing communities. I happen to live in one. And even if I'm not a golfer, just having this breathing space is a benefit to the area. And a large barbecue area at Wild Creek is also available to the public. So this high school project could bring more traffic congestion, I'm sure it will bring, and the noise pollution to this rather tight area. Wild Creek is also, as mentioned, is on the floodplain, and this fact alone should give the Washoe County School District pause before acquiring this project for a high school. It is sad that the RSCVA would be willing to donate this property to a school board when there are so many negatives are apparent and little to no real benefits to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next I have Mr. George Lee.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to talk before this august body. I know that what is being done with the property is out of your hands. You're not in a position to decide that because you'll be selling the golf course to the school system, which is, by the way, a completely separate entity. It's not part of the county in the sense that the businesses or the county commissioners, it's not part of, it's strictly the school system, the Washoe County school system. And we don't have any control over what they do with it after they acquire it. Several other plans have been dreamt up for other positions where it can be put, but that's not your job. That's not where you stand. You stand whether to decide whether to sell it to them or not. Now, I'm concerned because monies generally are always given to the school system by vote of the voters. They vote to tax the people, and the people give the money to the school system. It's not up to you guys to be charitable and give them something like $30 million worth of golf course, and so that they can build a high school. I'm concerned about what's going to happen. Is the money going to come back to RSCVA, and RSCVA is going to use it to pay down some of its debts on all of the other properties that you guys own? I'm very concerned about that financial responsibility that you as a board have to do something with that, if you are indeed going to sell it to them. And I mean, there are 99 holes of golf course that have been closed in the past few years. We're running out of public golf courses here. You can't, I mean, you guys are captains of industry, and you're wealthy enough to be able to be members of those other clubs, of Red Hawk and of all of the country clubs. But the average man, the people who go out and play the public courses, don't have that kind of wealth. And this is not a challenge based on class structure or anything like that, but it's the facts that I used to play before I got arthritis in a league. And the people that played in the league were not the presidents of companies, and that they were the guy who worked next to me in the factory, the guy who drove truck, the guy who... Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Next, I have Diane Antisich. I apologize if I mispronounced.
Hi, I'm Diane, and I live looking over Wild Creek, and I just get upset because I don't think you should, I didn't prepare a speech, sorry, but I just get so upset that you're going to give over this land to the school when it's a total flood area. The last 7 years, I've seen that whole area flood out, and it's been from one end to the other is a flood. And this, right now, the golf course is the only place that can hold all this water. And if we let the water go down to Taglia Park, you saw what happened last winter at Taglia Park. All the water will run down there, and they were already overflowed. And I fear that the cost would be too much, probably up into the $350 million it would take. The city of Sparks doesn't have the money to do the infrastructure, and we don't have the money for the school system. And the school system already owes on our taxes, me alone, $260 a year just in the school debt. And with this WC1, they aren't even planning to repay the debt to the taxpayers. And so that's another concern, is the cost to all the taxpayers. So I plead with you, please don't turn it over to the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further comments signed in at this time, is there anybody who would like to speak on public comment? All right, seeing none further, we'll bring it back to the board. All right. At this time, I'm looking for, we're on to item C, approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up before we do this. We are pulling some items today. We are pulling item F2 from the agenda to be heard at a different time. So looking for a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of F2. Motion. I have a motion. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On to approval of minutes of the June 15th, 2017 special board meeting and the June 22nd regular board of directors meeting. Looking for a motion? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? All right. We are on to item E1. Appointment of board member pursuant to NRS 244A 601, section 1D2, representing general business. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, in your materials, excuse me, you have a letter from Trey Abney on behalf of the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce identifying 4 individuals being nominated for appointment to the RSCVA board. The appointment is for a 2-year term, would be effective immediately, and this is for the seat held by Mike Hicks. The 4 nominees presented by the Reno Sparks Chamber are Mr. Mike Hicks, Miss Lisa Jansen, Miss Ann Silver, and Mr. Vic Wowo. Per NRS 244A 601, the selection is made by the 3 elected officials, so while the item is open for discussion by the entire board, the selection is made by the 3 elected officials. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. So I do see some of the candidates here today with us. What I'd like to do first is have an opportunity for each one of them to get up and give a brief summation of the reasoning for applying for this position as the RSCVA, and realize that this is a very important board, and this board serves a great purpose to our community, as this representative from small business or general business, so to speak, what they would do, what the reasoning is for it, what they would bring to the RSCVA as a board member, and also how they would continue to represent general business in response to RSCVA. So I'm just going to go down the list as they're kind of presented on our agenda. So Mr. Michael Hicks, if you would like to. Mr. Hicks, as our illustrious board member.
For the record, Mike Hicks. I wasn't planning on speaking, but given the opportunity, I will go ahead and take that. One, I'd like to start out thanking the board members for the opportunity to serve this last year. I took it very seriously. I felt that I worked hard to build a consensus on the board. My votes were in the consensual with the rest of the group. And I want to give very briefly some background relative to the chamber. When this position came open, the chamber came to the executive board and asked if anybody was interested. And as the board members know, the positions that held, you've had a banker on this board for many, many years. And through the proper legislative process, you shrunk the board and lost the banker position, who brought a financial background to this board. And by losing that banker, and when the position came open, it felt appropriate for me to put my name in the hat, having been a 35-plus year banker here in this community, helping hundreds of businesses work through prosperity and recessions. I feel I'm a very strong candidate in representing the business community. In addition, my father was in the gaming industry all of his life. And having been a graduate of Nevada, I also pursued a banking school, which basically taught us how to run a bank. And I did my thesis with my dad in the gaming industry on lending to the gaming industry. So my background not only is representing the community, but also understanding the ins and outs of the gaming and the tourist industry. So the chamber unanimously recommended me to be on this board, except for Mr. Wowo, who I respectfully understand his intention of not voting. And as you know, this organization requested a list, which I respect. I agree that we need to go back to what the NRS requests, and totally understand that you need a list from the chamber. But I honestly do believe that I'm the best candidate from the chamber to represent this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Next I have is Miss Lisa Jansen.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Jansen, for the record. So my journey here today has been kind of interesting. Let me give you a little background. I was nominated for the Chamber of Commerce, and it was one of those things that I was not aware of. And they had a meeting, and they started nominating people. And so I got a call saying, would you accept the nomination to be on the Chamber of Commerce? And that was 2 years ago, and I accepted and absolutely love the chamber and want to support them. So there was a list requested for this position, And again, I got the call, and it said, we'd like to nominate you. And the reason I was nominated is because I have an interesting background in business, and I've worked at the Nugget. So for the RSCVA, I have a lot of different perspectives, and I can add value. So they nominated me and the short list, and you know, it's been a very humbling experience because I did not seek this out, but I would be honored to serve. So in my extra time, I volunteer for 39 North downtown, and I like to do a lot to support the Sparks community as well as Reno. So it's an honor to be nominated. I think you've got 4 really qualified candidates, and I think you guys have an easy decision to make because everyone is great. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jansen. I don't see Miss Ann Silver. Ms. Silver is not here with us today. So we will skip past Mrs. Silver and Mr. Vic Wu. Vic Wu.
Good morning, RSCVA Board of Directors and the public. For the record, Vic Wowo with Whitney Peak Hotel, Senior Sales Manager. This has been an interesting process for me as well. Similar to Mike Hicks and Lisa, I was approached about a year ago to have any interest on serving on this board. At the time, given kind of the background in the chamber and who we typically had appointed to this board, I was in support of supporting Mike Hicks and putting him on the board with that financial background. With that being said, with the direction of the RSCVA and this board and the organization, it is very fresh. It is very new. The community is going along with it, and that's the support that you need. I have a very strong background in community service. I'm the president of the Young Professionals Network here in Reno, which is to attract and retain young professional talent in the community and in the region. So I think tapping into that kind of a talent and that kind of a base and broad demographic is what the RSCVA needs. In addition to what the RSCVA, I believe, needs on this board is a different dynamic and a different voice from a different generation. And I think I can do that, not just because of my generation or my ethnicity, but along with my experience in the community. I'm well acquainted with a lot of you guys on the board, and I think that I will be able to serve with you and vote with my heart and in the direction that I believe that the RSCVA board needs to go. Similar to what Lisa said, we do have 4 really qualified candidates that can serve in this position. I do think that I provide the best opportunity for business in this community to be represented on this board. So with that being said, elected officials, thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you, Board of Directors.
Thank you, Mr. Wowo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is open it up for discussion amongst our board. As I stated, this is a very important seat. All of you, aside from the electeds, serve for various different entities and find that you understand the importance of the representation on this board. At that, I'll open it up. Mr. Frahi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are members of the chamber, and all the candidates are obviously very qualified. The issue here, in my mind, is this term of 2 terms maximum and 2 years per term. Every organization takes time to learn, to understand what the function of the organization is, what the goals and objectives are, and to be able to be contributing effectively to the mission of this organization. I think Mr. Mike Hicks has done a fabulous job. He's not that I've agreed with him every time, yes, but I respect people who stand for what is right and fight for what is right, and he's that caliber person. And I feel that he's just getting to know the organization and contributing even more, and I urge the public officials to retain him on this board.
Seeing any further comment at this time? All right, seeing none. All right, at this time, it is at the discretion of the elected officials to decide on this vote. So I would open the floor for a motion at this time for a recommendation. Yeah, just from us. It's just the three of us, so.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Chamber. I think they've done a very good job of sort of coming back and forth to be very thoughtful in the candidates that they've brought forward. I think they're all incredibly talented. I wish we could have all of you. So we'll just sort of wrap you up into one. And also I want to say thank you to Mr. Mike Hicks. I do think that he's done a very good job here. My recommendation, however, would be to nominate Mr. Vic Wowo. I do think he's got a very fresh perspective, and you know, I think this board is challenging, and you know, I do think at times we all see differently, and I think that's a great thing and a very positive attribute in all of us. So that would be my recommendation. And that's what I would like to, who I'd like to nominate.
Great, thank you. I will second that nomination. You know, I have had a number of times for further discussion. I have had a number of times to sit with Mr. Hicks and had discussion with Mr. Hicks, and I have appreciated his service over the last year here at this board. This is a very difficult board. It's a challenging board to, not that the members are difficult, but the issues that we deal with are difficult. And we are challenged with a number of different things to bring forth tourism and support the economy in many different ways. We have a lot of our a huge basis for our economy is based upon the direction that this board gives. And with that, I think it's the way we are going as a board and the way we are going as an organization. We are bringing fresh, new perspective to the community. We're bringing a new feeling to the area. I think Mr. Hicks has done a phenomenal job in the last year in his tenure here, but I am looking for a more of an exciting movement forward. So at this time, I would second Mr. Wowo's, and then I see Mr. Lawson for further discussion. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lawson. Mr. Lawson.
And always to be the contrarian, so my apologies.
Go right ahead, that's what I like.
And I predicted this when the board changed. We're gonna have 6 hoteliers on the board. And I didn't know that that was a good thing at the time. It has nothing to do with Mr. Wowo and his selection, and I'm okay, you know, I think he's a wonderful man and I think his experience as well, but I'm worried that we're losing perspective if we're all hoteliers on this board. And obviously, we're the 3 elected officials. We carry our own banner to this board too. So, you know what? I respect the mayor's and the chairman's choice, and I will go along with it. I would like to see Mr. Hicks reserve because I think he was just getting started, and I think he brought great insight and could read the financials like nobody else, and that's pretty important because I don't have that skill that he does, and I rely on now Mr. Chisel to help me through that as we go forward too. But that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. All right, so I have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So I have 2 for Vic Wowo and a nay. Motion carries. Mr. Wowo, welcome.
Congratulations. Answer the question, please.
Yes.
Can the board veto the vote?
No, the statute is clear.
No veto.
All right, welcome, Mr. Wowo. Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Thank you for your service. We appreciate your time over the last year. You've done a very wonderful job for us as a representative, and thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Carousel. Mr.
Oh,
Carousel.
I heard the comments that we're going in a new direction and so forth and so on, and that's why we're selecting Mr. Wu. And I think they're all 4 very qualified candidates, but just out of maybe interest for the future, can we put that in verbiage? What direction are we going with this board, so we can all understand that? I mean, I somewhat understand it, but maybe not 100%.
Sure.
So let's get it out here, and let's put it in the public record so the community understands what this new direction is and where we're going. We're trying to go. Hopefully we'll get there, but where is it?
Yes, sir. Sure. We will take it. Mr. Fry.
I think what Mr. Chair is saying, Matt, that you and I may be getting too old for this board.
I think if you and I had to interview for this position, we'd have never got it, John.
Okay. With that being said, Mr. Kennedy.
Yep, so this is a vacant seat. The appointment is effective immediately, so Mr. Wowo can participate in the meeting. Madam Clerk has a written oath that he'll need to sign, and
okay, so
he's on the board.
Let's take a quick recess for a couple minutes. We're going to take a 5-minute recess and we'll be back.
Thank you. I was meaning to come along and say hello, but I haven't had a chance.
Enjoying ourselves. Remodeled our house.
I will chair the
Shouldn't
meeting.
last more than 15 minutes.
If it lasts 15 minutes, I'm going to be upset.
I've talked to
I cancel a golf game for tomorrow.
I've talked to every board member individually.
Are you playing the hotel?
No, I got one opportunity. It was yesterday. It was tomorrow, and I'm like,
that up for you?
I do. I like to play. I suck at it. I'm not horrible, but I'm not great. Yeah, you will make it up to me. All right. Okay, everybody, I'm going to ask everybody to grab their seats, and we're going to get started here. I'm going to bring the meeting back to order. I promise if we all get organized pretty quickly here, we'll be back, we'll be situated and out of here quicker than not. All right, we are back. And we are back. And so we are on to item E2. And at this time, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this agenda item is in furtherance of the RSCVA's procedure for seating board members. In your materials, you have a copy of NRS 244A601, which identifies the 4 organizations that nominate individuals for membership on the RSCVA board. And the statute provides that those 4 nominating organizations provide a list of nominees to the RSCVA board. And historically, at times, the nominating organizations would provide one nominee, and the elected officials have been willing to sort of waived the multiple nominee requirement and have given the single individual an up or down vote. There's been some concern among the elected officials that that going forward, the RSCVA should be requiring the nominating organizations to provide lists of nominees rather than single candidates. We've put this in as an agenda item to get board input and to allow the electeds to sort of take a position to make clear to the nominating organizations how nominations will be handled on a going forward basis. Again, because the elected officials are the ones that ultimately select the individual, I think this is a determination from the elected officials, if they want to put an official policy in place to require lists of nominees going forward from all the nominating organizations. But again, it's been put on the agenda to allow the board to give some input and to allow the elected officials to ultimately decide how they want to handle this going forward. So with that introduction, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And I asked for this to be put on the agenda after some concern in regards to process, in regards to our appointments to this board. I want to make very clear that this is our board. This is the board of the RSCVA. The members that serve on this board have a very, very important duty to uphold while on this board, and that is representing the convention and visitors and tourism in our region and promoting economic development. And so with that, the NRS clearly states that a list must be provided. And so not to single out anyone or feel like any one entity should be singled out in this process, I want to make clear so that going forward, that every nomination from here on out be brought with a list of membership from each entity to clearly define what that membership would look like and allow this board to have discussions as we did today in regards to representation of that board member and how that goes forward. Now, I understand that some of the entities that do nominate individuals and have representation on this board are challenged with their membership, so to speak, sometimes in regards to who they can nominate and who can and the ability. And the one thing that I would suggest going forward is that if for whatever reason an entity would not be able to provide a list, that they would provide us that we're unable to provide you with a list, we only have a single candidate that qualifies based upon our membership, that they would provide a letter to that effect to this board with their nomination, stating the reasoning behind the submittal of only one name to this board. But from here on out, I would ask that all of the entities participate in the process that is outlined in NRS to provide this board with a list for further discussion. So with that, I will turn it over to any of the board members for open for discussion. Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing this to the attention of the board. I think this is very much needed, certainly sort of what we've dealt with in the last year. But I do want to say the reason that I think this is so critical is because it shows transparency in the process. So I do want to stress that, and I know that other boards have different amounts of members based on their boards, like you had mentioned. But I think it's good that the rest of the board members know that moving forward, we will look for other board members to be brought forward, and it won't be just one selection. And again, I think that helps the process be much more transparent. So I want to commend you, Chairman Lucy, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Lawson.
And the only part I would disagree with is that a letter would suffice for only a single name. I'd say every organization has more than one member, so they have to come up with some. Even the airport board has 9 members, so I mean, they should be able to find it. And the same at the lake. There should be no problem finding more than one name to submit. So I would just ask that maybe if we're going to do a policy that we do not accept a letter in lieu of a single name nomination.
Okay.
And especially from the NRA side where there's a whole lot of members.
I agree, and like I said, I'm not looking to provide a way out. I'd want to be as strict adherence to this policy as possible. So what I would ask is that our policy just mimic that of NRS 244A 601, and that it is consistent. and that a list is provided by all entities, that it's clearly outlined in NRS, and there shouldn't be any kind of discussion otherwise about that. Does that seem suitable for you, Mr. Councilman?
Absolutely. I just, like I said, I don't want to create an out.
Right.
What the intent was to give a selection for the elected officials to choose from.
Correct. Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this policy or Mr. Caraselli?
It would be, being that you want to change it and move in that direction, we need multiple candidates from every entity or every group that, nominates the RSCVA. I suggest maybe you come to the NRA meeting, the Nevada Resort Association meeting, and explain your position and why. And I think that would be something that we would then digest as the Nevada Resort Association, and or maybe let you know the whys and wherefores.
Absolutely.
There was only one candidate type thing, and it goes back many years now to the way we've selected candidates. There is a formula, and it's worked very well, but only any one candidate, which is sent to the elected. So, but it would be good for you to come and explain, and so we all understand what this really means.
Yeah, and I would gladly come and participate in an NRA meeting to have that discussion.
Maybe let call Virginia Valentine from the NRA and ask her to have some time at the next board meeting, NRA.
Absolutely. I'll reach out to Ms. Valentine.
Thank you.
Mr. Murdoch.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I would just, I agree with Nat on the NRA, but one other point is there is already a system and rotation process because of, the way we rotate through the NRA situation. So I think it really needs to be clarified on how that works, because they have a system already in that's been used, and it seems to work pretty well. There's always been balance, and it seems to get the right community members from the NRA on this committee. So I would, yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Wood.
Yes. Yes. Is this simply a change in the selection process, or is it going to affect the areas where the people come from? In other words, is North Lake Tahoe going to be still represented by one candidate? There's no change in that, correct?
No, absolutely not. And that's going to remain the same, and that's already outlined in NRS. And so this is just adhering to the NRS code that is already outlined for this board, the process. It's not anything other than the process.
Yeah, I just wanted that clarified.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, any further discussion at this time? All right, seeing none. At this time, looking for a motion to adopt the process of a selection of the RSCVA to follow and adhere to NRS 244A601. I have a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. We are on to agenda item, excuse me, let me get back here to my book here. We're on to E3, renewal of Capital Partners Consulting Agreement. This is an item, obviously in the contract that we had initially signed last year with Capital Partners to represent us during legislative session. They worked diligently with our staff to prepare for the legislative session this last year or this year. That just came to a close on the end of June, or 1st of June. And now we are looking to extend their contract in the interim to help us and staff with any legislative that came, or any laws that came out of the session, and help us with the integration of those laws into our daily business. So with that, does anybody need a presentation on this or discussion on this? Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, I just want to suggest, since we do not have a legislative platform, that would be something that Capital Partners would work on with us to develop prior to the next session. So we as RSCVA have a platform that we can all look to and say, yep, that's what we agreed to as a board. And this is going back to Mr. Caroselli's direction, is where we're going in the future.
I agree, and I think an outline platform would be beneficial. We were subject to our previous representation retiring last year, and so on the fly we had to hire a new firm. I think in the interim, I think it would be a benefit that we adopt a legislative platform and how we went forward, because we went into this session and played a lot of defense and had a different, and if it would have been better had this board had a little bit better of an understanding what they were looking for in legislative policies prior to the session. And so I would agree that would be part of the extension of the contract. Mr. Murdoch.
You know, I don't know the protocol, but does the RCVA always had like Capital Partners, a lobbyist on staff during the off season of the legislature? Is that something that this board has done? That would be my question.
Yes, we have. We've retained. Mr. McMullen was on constant retainer.
Sam?
Sam. No, he wasn't. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Mr. Kennedy.
So since my time here, we haven't. I don't know before I was here if we had year-round representation. Last session we had Sam McMullen's group. At the end of the session, his contract was over and it wasn't, the board decided not to consider it, so it went without between the session before last and this last session. Previous to that, I don't know if anybody on staff knows if we've had continual, but in my time here, we haven't.
Okay. Okay. Staff does. I'm looking to staff and no.
Not that I recall, but that just goes back 10 years.
Okay. So, Mr. Caroselli.
I think we should ask ourselves as board members 3 questions, and I'm not really sure whether we need one or not. My thoughts would be that maybe we don't, but just the questions. What is the scope of work we would want Capital Partners to perform during this interim time, number 1? What are the legislative issues we are hoping to address from now until the next legislative session, number 2? Can Capital Partners share with us their priorities for the RSCVA legislative issues that they have planned on addressing? Because I don't see us necessarily as that controversial of an entity that we have such issues out there that we need lobbying for the next 2 interim years when we really don't have anything to lobby about. And to me, it appears that just in general, if it was Capital Partners or Joe Schmo, that it's a waste of money and a waste of, well, it's a waste of our money. If we're not talking about trying to get as much in advertising and marketing as possible, I'd rather save the 24 or 30,000 and put in advertising and marketing. Those are just my opinions. Probably some will disagree and some will agree.
Thank you, Mr. Caroselli. Mr. Fry.
Who dares to disagree with you now? Oh, your wife. I think what Matt said makes sense. First, we gotta know what we want to accomplish between the sessions. Why do we need to have a lobbyist before we decide whether we need to bring somebody on board and what the scope of that work is, and then put a number to it. So I think it's premature for us to make that decision until we get a handle on what our again mission is. What are we trying to accomplish?
Mr. Murdoch. Did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. I think it would be advantageous, as the board members have expressed, to have more of a strategic plan as we get closer to session. Obviously, I think that would be beneficial. I also think requiring any lobbyist who we retain to be at some of the meetings so that they can understand the magnitude of what we're dealing with when we go into session. And maybe it's to the point where, you know, if we do feel at some point that it's necessary, we could bring them on as a contract basis. But for the interim, until, you know, we are a ways out and things change dramatically and thinking about exactly the strategy that we want to have going into the session, then I think, that's the time to have the conversation. But right now, it would be great to put that money into marketing.
Mr. Kursala.
I agree with the mayor on the issue that if an issue comes up that is that important and that earth-shattering between now and next legislative session, we can hire a lobbyist for issue-specific work based on the contract dollars that we agree upon. So I don't see how we're losing anything in between. We can cover ourselves if something comes up by doing it that way, or we can just wait until we get ready for the legislative session in almost 2 years from now.
Mr. Lawson.
So my concern is time has a way of slipping by very quickly. We don't have a legislative platform. A legislative platform doesn't happen overnight. We are talking about some liquidation of assets and moving those around. That's going to require political support that needs to really start pretty soon, not right now. So we need to start lobbying senators and assembly people to help us in the governor's office, and I just think it's important to have them. I get it that the money probably not as well spent at this minute, but at the same time, a legislative platform requires some extreme vetting from this board, and then it makes it easier for whoever the legislative liaisons are during the session to make decisions. And it worked very well for Sparks in that we have a legislative committee, but we know what this council wants in the beginning so that there's no decisions that are being made by that legislative liaison committee that during the session that wouldn't be along board policy. So my deal is I don't really care if we do it or not, but let's make sure we get our legislative platform in place and get that moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Murdoch.
I say bank it, and I like the idea of us getting our act together on if you would put together, Mr. Chair, I may ask a legislative committee eventually that could identify some things. I think Ed hit some great key points. We do have a lot of moving parts, but at this point, I think until we come up with the plan, I think it's premature and bank the money.
Okay. So, is there any further discussion at this time?
Just really quickly.
Oh, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
I would agree with Mr. Lawson in the sense of certainly getting our act together, and Mr. Murdoch, what everyone has expressed. I think that is really important to be very definitive in what our message is and what we're trying to accomplish. I do also want to point out, in fairness, that this is not unique in the fact that you typically will retain your lobbyist the entire time. So, so I do understand, some of the reasoning for why we do that. But I think, to Mr. Murdoch's point, being pretty clear in the direction that we're going to go in and then having a plan before we jump would be beneficial. So let's get that in place first and then go from there to figure out the exact strategy.
Mr. Wood.
I think that this might be something that we can further discuss at our retreat and plan for the future. I agree with Mr. Lawson. Time does sneak up on you, and before you know it, there'll be another legislative session, and if we're not prepared, we saw what happened last time. So I think that we should have further discussion possibly during our retreat.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. And I a lot of phenomenal comments and very important, poignant comments that have been made so far. I agree. I think that there needs to be a strong platform that we rely upon as a group and an organization going forward. This isn't just about legislation. It is about everything political because it is a very political in nature that this board serves upon. Many of the topics, many that we've heard today from the public comment, also from the floor, and dealing with other entities, how those agreements work, and bringing the right individuals in there. So I think that type of consultation is important to have consistent throughout the year. However, until we have that platform, I think that, you know, it is wise and for us to bank this issue and bring it back at the retreat for further discussion and ask for capital partners to provide us, have them get with staff and have a further discussion about what the staff sees the political issues would be and some of the legislative issues would be going forward, and how capital partners has a plan to overcome those challenges going forward. Mr. Carousel.
Is it possible, I guess, at the retreat, that we discuss whether or not we, and this is nothing against anyone, we want to retain capital partners, or do we may want to go out for a new RFP or RFQ, whatever it is? When would be the time to go out for that with their contract expiring?
The contract's expired.
So in other words, I recommend at the board too, we have to discuss whether or not we should back out on the market for, you know, for as we did this last time, for potentially, you know, for new bids or new possibilities with Slavius.
And I think that's something we can. Evidently do. And it looks like legal counsel's giving me some direction here.
Sure, just so everybody's on the same page and we're clear, lobbying services is a professional service under NRS, so we don't necessarily have to bid it. The board can do as they want. They can just decide on legislative representation. In the past, we've done an RFQ, so we've invited firms to sort of tell us your qualifications and why we should choose you to sort of increase the pool of applicants, but it's not required, just so everybody knows.
Okay. Mr. Murdoch.
In the spirit of, I think, transparency, I think it would be good if you do put it out. I know that the airport adopted that policy. I'm just, not that we have to copy the airport, what they do, but you do put a, you know, what do you put, an RFQ or RFP out? It's just good to see what's out there. And if, you know, if you win the day, you win the day. So just a thought, and thank you.
Mr. Carousel.
I think it's great fiscal integrity to be out testing the water as we do these things or renew these things.
You know, and I think, and I have to go back to a statement that I made earlier in the meeting, is that this is a new board. The board that decided on the membership has changed dramatically, and since we decided on the last group, so I think it would be prudent to have, if we do select a new group, that the new board be able to voice their opinions towards that legislative group and what that group looks like. So at this time, we'll probably, what I'm going to do is table this item and bring in this item back at the board retreat next month for further discussion, and whether we want to continue and what that discussion looks like, whether it's continuing the process, whether that is going to require this board to go out to RFQ for that, or what that looks like. So with that being said, we'll table this item until August.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Farahi.
You don't want to kick the can down the road. If you are going to discuss it at the retreat, you have to have a reason. Why do we need one now, or we can wait for later? So I suggest we get from at least the existing our consultants to get a list of why do we need to retain them now, and then based on that at the retreat discuss it. If not, we're going to be again talking without having anything in front of us to be able to make a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Farahi. We can ask.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Carousel.
I agree with Mr. Fry.
You're going to agree with him?
That's on the record.
Yeah, whoa. Is
I agree
somebody?
with, he had a great second quarter.
That is on the record. That is taped. That's permanent. That's been taped. It's on. We're gonna replay that every once in a while. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll ask staff to reach out to capital partners and have them bring back a proposal in regards for a need of continuance of service, and why. You've heard from the boss down here. You got his direction. Yes, sir.
I asked 3 questions if you wanted to put in the minutes of the
Yes.
I think those are important, they can answer those, or they should answer those.
Perfect, and I think what we can do is have staff, that's okay. We can have staff go back and look at the record that Mr. Caroselli, the questions Mr. Caroselli posed earlier in the topic, for further discussion. So we'll bring that back next month. All right, moving on. We are on to item E4, Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority staff, Mr. Phil DeLone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm happy to introduce formally to you our new Director of Finance, Mr. Robert Chisel, who is sitting on my immediate left. And for those of you who don't know this fine gentleman, he has most recently served as Director of Finance and Administration for the City of Reno, managing a budget in excess of $250 million. And so, Robert, welcome. We're all happy to have you here, and welcome to our team. As previously promised to the board, we have launched now 3 distinct newsletters that go out, published and written by the RSCVA. Those address 3 separate markets. Samples of those are in your packet on the table. One is addressed to the convention market in the United States, going out to CEOs and meeting planners. The second is to the wholesale travel and leisure market. And then the third goes out to 700 stakeholders here in the community. The last one reports on actions and items that this board has considered at each monthly session. These newsletters will be published monthly. We will include news of pertinent data with renovations of hotels, renovation of the convention center, what's happening with Wild Creek, what's happening with leadership in the community. The goal is really to keep our new brand and our community and destination in front of decision makers around the nation that drive tourism to our market. We've also embedded in the newsletters some clever videos, cooking lessons that have been developed by our chef at the Reno Sparks Convention Center. Each lesson is 2 minutes in length, and for all we know, people might just open the email just to see what the cooking lesson of that month is going to be. So if you want to know how to make Estonian pancakes, click on the button. Thanks for participating in our recent roundtables with board in preparation for our August 24th retreat. That will be held at the convention center in the D meeting rooms at 8 o'clock on that date, the 24th of August. It will be administered by our partners at On Strategy, the strategic planning consultants, and it'll be continue to include a lengthy agenda on our facilities and the pathway going forward on such things as the divestiture of Wild Creek and the maintenance of the Livestock Events Center. Through our individual roundtables, some recommendations came to us that we should expand, document, and enhance the number of policies and procedures we have, as well as have a complete menu of financial and operational policies. So we are garnering every policy we have. We've also consulted with the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority and now have obtained all of their policies. And we are drafting policies for the consideration of the board, and those should be ready in the next 30 days to take a look at the retreat, at least a draft version. The Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks just left Reno last week. The citywide had more than 7,000 folks in attendance, and they left very, very happy. And they are now considering rebooking our destination for 2023. And in a few weeks, we'll welcome the American Legion, a citywide convention of 8,000 delegates, and we're well prepared for their arrival at the convention center. Also, tomorrow we'll review the requirements of another citywide too. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. DeLone. All right. Ms. Cunningham.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I
Madam
just,
Mayor.
I just want to say something. First of all, does everyone feel happier and lighter and brighter? I love the color.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
How could you not notice?
Everybody
Right?
loves the color.
So, yeah, I absolutely love it. But I also want to say welcome to Mr. Chisel. We're excited to have you. And I just want to let you know that Mr. Chisel will be greatly missed at the city, and he honestly was responsible for paying down our debt about $150 million. So this organization is very lucky to have him. I'm excited to work with you. That's the other piece, is that he knows a lot of the ins and outs of the $2 surcharge and what the background is, certainly CPI and the things that we deal with directly here at the RSCVA. So not only do we have a great finance person, but we also have someone that has a lot of knowledge and background in the issues that we face here. So I just want to say thank you, and we already miss you. So, but you'll be great here. So,
Mr. Kiersella.
I want to congratulate Mr. DeLone, and I think he's starting a process that I think is going to be great for the board and to educate us and inform us prior to meetings, so we can be, have more feedback or input as to making the decisions. So Phil, thank you for being proactive. Thanks for calling, and I think it's going to be make us a better board. We'll make better decisions, but I believe, and that's a template we heard from Rossi Rallinclatter, at the last retreat from Las Vegas, that he would call and meet with each board member prior to each board meeting, and I think Phil is starting on that, and I think it's going to reap benefits. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
All right, fun stuff. So the marketing team's been out and busy this last month doing a photo shoot for our summer campaign and summer creative, and I just have a few billboards to show you. This one, when we were shooting that, one of our people was videoing like a 15-second video clip, posted it to Facebook. It reached 2.4 million people, which doesn't matter. That's how many just saw it in their read. What matters is 1 million people clicked on this gal on her paddleboard with her dog. She's an influencer, but 1 million people clicked on it. We had almost 1,000 comments below it, and 9,000 people shared it. So it's working, you guys. It's going really well. This one was to sort of demonstrate. We took forever with this particular shoot, that we had so many photographs to choose from, but it was imperative that we had Reno in the background. So it's not just showing a mountain biker, it's showing, look, you're staying in Reno, you're gaming at night, you're enjoying lifestyle that we have, and the outdoor is very accessible. And this was a fun one to shoot, as you can imagine. The feedback we've gotten, I brought one email we got from one of our wholesalers, and their global branding and design manager sent us a note saying, this is a fantastic advertisement, perfect image, impacting text, and eye-catching. Yesterday, I had the honor and privilege of participating with Art in our Biggest Little City fam, where we showed some of our creative and talked to the wholesalers and tour operators. And what we heard is, you guys are killing it. This is exactly how we want to position Reno Tahoe to our audience. And the feedback, I'm so proud of the marketing team and of BVK and the board to move in this direction. And I'm excited to say our newest board member was one of the strongest advocates of the direction we're taking. I've got 3 15-second spots, and then I'm going to sit down. So bear with me. They'll go real quickly. Oh, I just hit something. Oh, shoot. Dad? Chad, I accidentally hit a button. I'm so sorry. Okay. Let's see. Maybe I can hit it with my finger. I'm sorry. Let's try this over. that's it for the latest and greatest with our advertising. And since I'm up here, I'll just finish off. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we've pulled together a task force, which I like to call a strike force, to talk about NBS marketing, the bowling stadium, and Kingpin. We're doing a pro forma and looking at opening that like over the Thursday through Sunday night. We've got a marketing plan that's being developed to promote it. We're going to be on the billboard promoting the main lanes at the bowling stadium, but we think a really great opportunity for us will be that Kingpin Club to bring in parties and volume and corporate business. And we have a sales manager that is focusing on getting out to the local corporate community and selling it, and it's a tool that some of our other salespeople have embraced and are promoting it as well for when we have groups in-house. I'll bring back a more formal plan to share with this board, but I want to let you know that we're working on it. So, and that's all I have for my report. I think, Mike?
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Ms. Cunningham?
Jennifer, where do we find those, the videos? Are they on our website already?
We've posted, they're not on our website yet. We've posted them on social media, and they'll be going live on our website. Probably, we're in the process of transferring our existing website to the new website, so they'll be on there probably within the next 30 days.
All right, I tried to post some of your stuff on Twitter, and I didn't see it yet, but this one will do very, very well. So,
Isn't
and
it
we've been getting a
great?
ton of feedback. I will tell you, at Conference of Mayors, there were 2 mayors specifically that asked me what agency we were using. And I didn't want to tell them, but I did, because I don't want their time taken away from us. But they had said they noticed the new brand in airports, billboards, and so it's really working. I've never seen this kind of feedback with any campaign that we've done. So I was a proud mama.
All right. Mr. Larraguetta.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, respective board members. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce Ms. Hillary Burton. Hillary is our Executive Director of Convention Sales for the Western Region. She has over 20 years in experience in the hospitality industry, most recently 7 years with the Sacramento Convention and Visitors Bureau, followed by Visit Newport Beach. Hillary is in town continuing her training with the team here in Market and also visiting all of our hotel partners. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Hillary Burton to the RSCVA team.
Welcome.
She walked in and she goes, "That's a great seat." I said, "That's not your seat, Hillary." So just an update in terms of travel. The sales department's calendars are extremely busy over the next 4 weeks. As Jennifer mentioned, we're concluding the BLC FAM tonight with the closing dinner and reception. The last 3 days, the 25 domestic and international wholesale clients that are participating in this FAM have just raved about the destination and what's happening as it relates to Reno, Sparks, and North Lake Tahoe, the capital improvements in our properties, the ad campaign, the overall message that we're sending. So very positive results that we're getting, and as we share, I'm sure we'll do a post-survey. We will share that with the board at the conclusion of the event. Next week, we have 6 clients representing 2 from the airline industry, 2 from the tourism industry, and 2 from the group and convention industry that are participating in the Barracuda Championship on the Wednesday Pro-Am. Arrivals are as early as Friday and staying through next Friday, which obviously we will be hosting these clients for the duration of their stay. Travel beyond that on the week of August 11 through 16. Representatives from the convention team, myself, Mr. DeLone, and our partner hotels will be attending the American Society of Account Executives annual trade show in Toronto. This is obviously a very important show for us to participate in, and not only obviously will we be there in strength and numbers, but we will also be revealing for the first time our new 20 by 20 trade show booth and destination model. So I'll definitely share the feedback that we receive from the meeting planners and attendees at that show based on their opinions on our booth and model, but we fully anticipate that they'll be well received. I mean, we've shared some of the photos and the looks with all of you, and we think they will have the same opinion. Following that, the next week we will be attending the Connect annual trade show in New Orleans. Again, several representatives of our team, in addition to hotel partners, will be joining us in New Orleans for that 3-day show. With regards to production, the month of May was very successful. Our total room production was 24,471 room nights. Of that 24,400 room nights, 9,100 were sourced and contracted to the entire hotel community. Those groups represented 2 from the sports segment and 1 from corporate. Dates of the actual bookings will take place in January, early January of 18, mid-July of 18, and September of 2017. An additional 21 groups representing 14,884 room nights were sourced and contracted to individual properties. These groups represented business from the following categories: environmental, financial, fraternal, sports, government, corporate, franchise, cultural, and consumer. Obviously, we are getting a wide variety of business that is booking our destination. With regards to the scorecard, again, very positive in the majority of the categories. The team finished at 84.5% to room night goal for the month of May. And for the year, the convention sales team is pacing at an 85% to goal with 215,794 contract room nights against a goal of 253,063. I've asked Mr. Jimenez on a quarterly basis to provide updates to the board as it relates to what his team is accomplishing and as it relates to their goals and objectives and developments as it particularly speaks to leisure. So I've asked Art to give a brief overview and update on leisure sales today. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Directors, well, the Tourism Department's been busy during my first 90 days here at the RSCVA. It's been a whirlwind. I just want to provide you with a few key successes that we've encountered over the last 90 days. First, sales missions. To date, we've planned 8 sales missions in fiscal year 18. 4 of those missions will be RSCVA produced, and they will occur in our key feeder and media markets to align with our marketing campaigns. And those markets are Seattle, Portland, the Los Angeles Basin, the San Francisco Bay Area, and Boise, Idaho. In addition to those 4 sales missions, we're conducting 4 sales missions with Travel Nevada to support both domestic and international sales activity. And those will occur in Southern California, Canada, Mexico, and the United Kingdom. Our monthly tourism production report that tracks production by 7 distribution channels. Currently, we have 8 properties, but we've increased that to 12 properties reporting, which will give us greater visibility into the leisure sales distribution programs, and it's going to allow us to make better data-driven decisions. So we're going from 8 to 12 properties. Another component of this programming is working with TravelClick. TravelClick reports GDS room nights into the city. We've increased the reporting from 18 properties to 24. So we'll see some good numbers coming out of that as well. And GDS represents approximately 120,000 room nights into the destination at a higher ADR for us. Next, we're working with a company called MailPound, and MailPound is a travel electronic distribution platform. For us to increase the destination awareness of travel agents, we've launched a survey with 55,000 travel agents for us to learn what their travel characteristics are, niche markets that they're selling, and we've had 1,025 agents complete that survey, which is very successful for us. So we're in the process of determining how we're going to use that survey, how we're going to communicate with these agents individually, very targeted communications. Additionally, we've launched an electronic bookcase with MailPound. This electronic bookcase will allow agents to post with one click our B2C collateral through their entire travel agent social media channels and their email databases, which we would not ever have the bandwidth to do on our own. So we're excited about that program. And international, after attending 2 international trade shows on behalf of the RSCVA, one Hotel Beds Conference in Cancun and IPW in Washington, D.C., and conducting one-on-one interviews with area hotel directors of sales and our DMOs, prospective DMOs, we've determined that we're not where we need to be for in-market international representation. In fact, we're way behind, way behind. You've got smaller DMOs in the destination here that have representation in various countries, and we don't have any, so we're going to work on getting some representation. Our first swing is going to be China. We've identified China as an important market for consideration. China inbound arrivals are approximately 49,000 seats per week into Las Vegas, Seattle, the Bay Area, and Southern California. So a lot of low-hanging fruit there. but there's a lot of things that we need to do first. We just can't show up to China with a brochure translated into Mandarin. We need to have product, get our product on the shelf, get tour operators in line, get China ready for the destination, talk about WeChat Pay, Weibo Pay, China Union Pay. So there's a lot of heavy lifting to do with this market channel. In fact, next Monday is our first international presentation here in the boardroom at 8:30 in the morning to discuss some programming, potential programming. And then finally, leisure sales and marketing. So the tourism sales department has developed some protocols that will secure us additional marketing exposure with all of our tour operators, OTAs, and wholesalers. We've identified some rules of engagement that will secure us at a minimum one-to-one matching funds and marketing campaigns, and we're also implementing more stringent room night reporting. And that was just real high level, but we've been really, really busy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Farahi.
Phil, are we going to have for the retreat presentation by yourself and the team about our marketing efforts, as far as I'm talking about fundamental things? I don't need to know you're going to 5 shows here, 10 shows there, because most of those are for fun anyway. But what I'm asking fundamentally, I see what our plans are, how we're going to measure it, what are the areas of opportunity, what kind of resources we're going behind it. So that is, as a board member for me, that is what I like to see where we are going, where are the opportunities, what kind of resources it's going to take to get the job done, and how we're going to measure it by a third party. So I would appreciate it.
You don't trust us, John?
Yeah. I have not trusted this organization for 30 years. So I'm hoping that you guys are going to turn it around. Be very blunt. And
Yes, sir.
I appreciate what all you guys are doing. But again, for a board member, for me, going here and there means nothing. Give me the fundamentals, how we're going to measure it, how we're going to find out whether we are succeeding or not. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wowo.
I know I'm still kind of the new guy here, but I would actually tend to agree with what Mr. Farahi just stated, kind of looking at the analytics behind what kind of marketing efforts we're doing in what regions. I think is really important to actually, for us to see where we're actually benefiting and where these new visitors are going to be coming from. In addition to really pushing out this new brand, are we going into more airports? Are we going into shopping markets? Are we like where are we delivering this material? Because I think it is something that's important that we have to look at for analytics.
Thank you, Mr. Wowo. Mr. Murdoch.
First of all, let me commend you guys. It's a breath of fresh air. This is a breath of fresh air. We're going in the right direction. I think the proof's in the pudding when you see conversion. And we're seeing conversion in this marketplace. We'll see it. We'll hear more about it. But you've got more cooperation amongst the entities now. The airport, the RSCVA. We're all in the same boat, rowing the same way. Art, question for you. You know, we pay taxes in the state of Nevada. The governor, NCOT, Nevada Commission on Tourism. What are they doing for us? They got a China office. So those are things that I think are cool. I think you're going down that, but those are things that we know we need to take advantage of because we're paying the money. But first of all, we're going in the right direction. Keep it up. Yeah, track all these things, but when you convert, we know it. And you know, in the year, for the year, what did you book next year? Make it real simple. I don't want to hear pipeline. I want to see action. I just want to see bottom line. So, thank you very much.
Mr. Caroselli.
To take off of what Rick said, I think if you look at your report, you'll see a substantial increase, not only in number of room nights, but in cash ADR number. Your cash ADR number and number of room nights is going that way, was going this way. Just a comment.
Thank you. You know, and Ms. Cunningham.
I was just going to make a quick comment about measurement. It's as if we've queued up on strategy. I love what Howard has to share with us. But number two, you may remember that we did a research in the market, a pre-research project in the markets that we are going into. And I think it's the third week in August, early September? October, that we'll be going back to those markets and doing a post-analysis. So third party, we're bringing it to you. We'll have it.
So, yeah, Ms. Cunningham, to Mr. Farrelly's request, if we could just have that ready for the retreat, that would be great. Proposal, just a little presentation showing what we've done over the last 12 months. That would be fantastic. And I think there is great consensus amongst this board that, Mr. Dillon, you've done a phenomenal job. You've built a phenomenal team, and we're moving in the right direction. I think with the addition of Mr. Larragueta and Mr. Jimenez to our sales and tourism staff, I think we've done, I've seen leaps and bounds. And one thing I would urge, that Mr. Caroselli brought up earlier, from the recommendations that we got last year from Mr. Rollencotter, was that every board member attends a sales meeting or a sales trip or a FAM trip of some sort. And I'm sending John to somewhere in the middle of Texas. Arkansas, yeah, Arkansas would be good for you. Yeah. Do we have trips in Arkansas? We should send him there. But I do think it's important. I have personally attended a few trips to Salt Lake City and also to DC on sales missions. I think it's important that our staff, Mr. Murdoch, I know you did it tremendously quite a bit with the airport authority and traveled as their chairman to many different destinations to discuss and I think it's different when it comes from a board member's mouth versus a staff member's mouth, and they see the level of involvement that we continue to share when we go on these trips and these sales. So I think it's important. I think we need to put policy forward, and if it's not policy, just an unwritten understanding that every board member should attend some sales mission with our staff throughout the year to see the challenges that to hear, so that, because it does effectively bring back suggestions on how we need to change our policy to be more effective and allow our staff to be more effective while in market. So, Mr. Farahi, your comments, sir?
Phil, how long you been here at this position?
7 months approximately.
7 months. God bless you. But I want to tell you, Mr. Chair, in 7 months you cannot evaluate a team whether they're doing phenomenal job or not. You're saying phenomenal job. You got to give time, let the team do their job before we say those accolades.
All right, I retract my previous statement. You're doing a decent job. Yet to be determined. Yet to be determined job.
I would be the biggest supporter of the team, but let them do their work, please. That's when we party. Results.
The grumpy old men over here. Jeez. Mr. Murdoch.
I think that I've seen it, especially in the airport level, but when the elected officials, and we commend the mayor, who's been very open to any trip or any time we need her for an airline executive, or I commend you, Chairman, you're there. That helps a lot. Don't stop doing that. More important, that it's a double whammy for us, because you guys are all part of our community and you're on this board. So I like it when you two travel. It's really fun. It's nice. I know it's hard because you have day jobs. But we thank you for that. That's important.
Good job. I mean, honestly, sorry. What a difference a day makes. Really. Thank you. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Well, as it's been discussed, you're yet to be determined success. We'll just take it as you're going in the right direction, Mr. DeLong.
It's a rough room, I admit.
Hey, evidently, and as the minutes tick past, it gets tougher and tougher. So we will turn it over to Mr. Jensen and Mr. Chisel for or for facilities and finance. Or Mr. DeLone?
Mr. Chisel's been here, I think, 3.5 days.
You mean he's
So-
not up to speed yet?
So well, he's headed in the right direction, let's just say that.
A decent job.
He's doing a decent job, sir. So with your permission, I would like to give him a hall pass today. But we are prepared to report on tax revenues collected for June, I believe. And
Robert Chisel, Director of Finance for the record. June was up 14.7% in taxable revenue, $35,443,000 over the $30,892,000 from last year of June. That brings a year-to-date total at $347 million, up from $317 million prior fiscal year, 9.6% increase. As was mentioned earlier, the ADR has been up also. ADR is up 8.5% for June over last year, and for the whole fiscal year, it's averaging 7.2% up year to year. So overall, revenues and ADR and numbers are increasing. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chisel, is that cash ADR or is that just ADR?
It is cash
Thank you.
ADR.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? No.
Sure.
All right. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Chisel. All right, Mr. Dillon, does that conclude everything on your presentation for this afternoon, this morning?
yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you for the words of encouragement, too. I appreciate it.
Hey, just keep going in the right direction. We are on to item E5, 2016 Visitor Origination Analysis Presentation. So with that, I believe we have Mr. Howard Olson here from On Strategy. Good morning, Mr. Olson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Board. You want to get that far? It's really exciting to be here. And I mean, been in, with a lot of boards and so forth, and the transparency and the discussion this morning has been really good. I mean, the camaraderie was great, and the setup for what we've got here on Jennifer, it's like, I mean, thank you, Mr. Fry. And we're talking about the different markets we're going into. So we're talking about the proof of the pudding at this point. So Howard Olson, and we've got
I'm Tim Robb.
Tim Robb, who's been with us for a number of years, but I've roped him in to help him with us. Corey Bodner, who's worked with us quite a bit on the visit origination. His family's got some medical challenges, so he's stepping back a little bit. So what we have here is a real quick summary. We didn't go really deep because, as you can only imagine, there's just a ton of numbers here, and we surely don't want to get too buried in some of this. But what I do want to do is probably for the first two slides is to get a little bit into the sausage, so to speak, sausage making, because what we're dealing with here is some really solid information. Probably, I don't know the CVB market, that well throughout the United States, but I doubt there's many other organizations that have the data that we have here. So Jennifer says, I'm asking her to jump in here because we've been running fast and furious to try to get this together. And so what we've got here is a result of, I get to stand up, and Tim and I get to stand up and present it. But the point is, we've had a lot of help from the RSCVA staff, Jennifer, and also getting the information from the hoteliers. Getting them to provide us with the information that we can work together and bring back. So this is a community effort to bring this together to say, here is our scorecard. Here is where folks are coming from. Here is the head in the bed. So just a little bit briefly on the beginning here on what we've got. The participating properties, we kind of talk about the 10 hotel casinos, because at the end of the day, they represent, when it comes to inventory from the hotel market, well over 80% of the inventory. So we work with them, and Jennifer has a strong relationship. The difference that we had between 2015, because now we have a follow-on with 2016, in 2015, the two non-participating properties, were Circus Circus, and one of the reasons with Circus Circus is they were going through transition and their databases didn't line up. And then the Nugget in Sparks as well because of the sale, and that was in 2015, their databases didn't line up. So we had 8 properties last year. This year we have 8. Again, John Vineyard from Harrah's worked really hard, and they just had some challenges, and he'll eventually get us the data, and we will pull it in. But at this point, what we were missing was the Sands and the Harrah's. So, but that will soon change. So when we get down to the point there where it says representative sample, so most of the time in research, we've heard that where we talk about a sample representing the full population, and we're talking 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 representing millions of people. We have over 60% of the inventory of this area in the hotel room. 60. We know the people are telling us where they're coming from. This is not guessing by golly. This is really cold, hard, and fact. So we have 60%, which represents for 2016, 2.4 million occupied hotel rooms. 2.4 million. And if we talked a little bit about the law of large numbers, if it comes together, and we have so much power in this data, it's just really strong. So without the cooperations of the 10 hotels, where would we be? We wouldn't obviously have anything, but it's sure telling us. And so how we use the data then is from the hotels. What we do is pull it together, have to clean it up. And you'll see in the next slide, we lose some information and so forth, but those are 2.4 million identified. We clean it up, and all we have is zip codes. We just know zip codes, and we know the number of room nights from that zip code. We don't care who they are, whether they're cash or comp, but the fact that they come here. And Tim and Corey pull it together. So we geocode it, so we pull it into MSAs, and then we can eventually, for Jennifer's for team and so forth, we can organize it in what you call DMAs and so forth. You will get the full report in about a week when we've got all the heat maps, and so we have them, but if we put them up there now, they're kind of eye charts, you wouldn't be able to see them. But we've got heat maps so you can see where everybody coming around the United States. We've got some high points we want to talk about here. So this is, again, as a little bit more of the continuing of the sausage. Being a researcher, it's really important to me that I have a solid foundation. And when we're talking about our scorecard, we know what we're making our decisions on. What Jennifer's going to be able to look back at with the marketing team is also where Art's going as well as Larry's going. And so what we had here, you see the comparison of 2015 to 2016. We started out with, you don't have the full number, but what we started out with was well over 2.4 million, and we did clean some of it out in what's called the unidentified number. But if we back up from there, we see on the domestic side, 61% of the full database we have. Our domestic room nights, we have very little Canadian, and we have very little international. So you say, why? What's happening here? So that raises a question. I think there's some further research that needs to go in here. I think Tim might verify this, but I think in some of the data that we get from hotels, they do clean out the internationals.
In a few of the properties.
And a few of not all the properties, but a few of them will clean out the Canadian room nights.
I'll jump into another reason for that could be international travel booked through a wholesaler that is located in Los Angeles, for example, and the hotels aren't getting an individual zip postal code for that international. They get the Torrico Tours identifier.
So to Jennifer's point, if we go down, it says domestic, on the rows, domestic, international, Canadian, total identifiable. Those are actual zip codes or postal codes that we know about. The unidentifiable, those are the ones that we get from the hotels. As Jennifer just said, they're a lump sum. They'll say null or whatever. They might be a group booking. They might be a direct booking and so forth. But they actually had it in-house and so forth. So there's 8% of the total database. We're not really sure where it's coming from. And some of it has to do with bad information in there, and some of it just because of the counting and so forth. But the fact is, that's now we add that down to 7.9% to the total. So basically from the hotels, we got 70% of the heads and beds, the people that came to the Reno Tahoe area. 70% of the hotel. I mean, that's just phenomenal. The other 30% are the result of the 2 hotels that we didn't get this year, and we'll eventually get Harrah's. And there's about 2,000 plus rooms that are inventory that are not part of that we didn't reach out to. So that's a quick representation. But what we do with this information then is where you see a total identifiable room nights. We have 61%. We're able to identify that many room nights. So we take that factor and we extrapolate the unknowns. Because for the full year, we have 3.9 million room nights, hotels for the area. So that's how we take, it's kind of like a lens. You take the 61.7% and you apply it through the whole database, because we happen to have as solid results as we do. So that's how we identify what we've got going on there. So that's the sausage I'm making. I appreciate you hanging in there, but the point is, it's really solid. We can, to Mr. Fry's question, we can have a scorecard. We can say, what's happening? We can say, are these efforts really paying out? It just doesn't sound good. We actually have the scorecard to look at it. And again, this is just a quick summary scorecard. You have a little quick handout. I did want to give you the whole thing. You'll see that handout has a top 15 MSAs that we have. That's the aggregation. We only took the top 5 and pulled them together so you could see what's changed between 15 and 16. So if you have any questions as we go through this, just quickly.
Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, Howard, do we identify where we have a direct flight to Reno Sparks?
Yes.
That would be interesting to see what our change is based with our marketing, that's a direct flight that may be new. Yeah. We're there? Perfect. Thank you.
Next year when we look back after our marketing has started, that is the point. We want to go to Seattle and see exactly how that changed.
All right, you're answering my question. That's perfect. That's where I was going. Thanks.
Mr. Olson, and I have a quick question too in regards to the data that's collected. How specific are we getting with the data? I mean, are we getting down to basic demographics like income, age, interests, stuff of that nature in each DMO that we're researching, or is it just purely the zip code and where they're coming from?
It's just purely the zip code. That's to maintain the proprietary side of the information for the hotels. We don't ask for names or anything like that. That was the first step. But what we can do, and Ms. Cunningham and I've talked about that, to your point, there's various and sundry services that you can match zip codes to profiles, to market research. There's 3 or 4 different organizations that take everybody in the United States, all 300 million of us, and put us in about 70 different buckets, which has information that's based on census data, the hard data, the income, and so forth, and plus psychographic data. So we can match that together because we have it all the way down to the zip code, Not, it just, this is an aggregation.
Great, so we don't necessarily have to sacrifice the proprietary data of our properties and still be able to obtain the data that we're looking for to kind of hone in specific marketing to those zip codes and DMOs, correct?
Absolutely.
Through these third parties.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that is available. Jennifer and I talked about that a little bit last year. There's a Nielsen's one organization that has it, and I've used it a number of times. But it comes down and they give you profiles.
Great.
So
Mr.
it helps
Farahi.
us with that. But what we have, to finish your point, of what we have here, this is an aggregation of an aggregation. We can go all the way down to zip code. Yes, Mr. Wright.
What I see on this, thank you. What I'm seeing that New York, Northern New Jersey, Long Island has the biggest drop year over year. And I would have thought in light of having nonstop with JetBlue that this would be increasing. And I just looked at it.
Right.
So do we have any information why this is happening?
So to your point, we met with Jennifer a couple days ago, and because it took a number of months to get the data together, and we waited for Mr. Vineyard to get it final to us, and we couldn't. So we got it together, sat down with Ms. Cunningham. We need to start looking at that. So one of my points that we have, we'll see that is New York, LA, and Portland are areas, are markets of interest for us. Actually, we've got some strong campaigns that are being in there, and they all exhibited 15 to 16 a drop. So in my point, I think that's an opportunity for us as we go and look at this. It's not something that will give us a hard way to break into, but we've got to understand that, and Jennifer probably has a pointer on that.
I do. Today, this morning, the airport team is in New York meeting with JetBlue, and I'm anxiously awaiting their return so we can see what's going on with where they are, their load factors, their yield, and we'll marry that information with this. That jumped out at me too.
Mr. Wolf.
And please excuse me if this has already been addressed, but are we getting any kind of reporting from a broader visitor standpoint, not just hotels, but Airbnb, and kind of what is that effect having on the market? Could that potentially be part of the drop-off for the international? Could that be part of the drop-off for some of these larger metropolitan areas? Because that's kind of the new phase and the new fad for travelers is to get Airbnb. So is there any kind of reporting for that coming in for our sake and our knowledge?
Not with this report, but we do periodically, every couple of years, a visitor profile study, which is a web-based research, and it encompasses anyone who's come to Reno, whether it's visiting friends and family, staying in Airbnb. It covers a much broader spectrum. The reason for this is so we can measure our advertisement in Seattle, how statistically it's moved. So yeah, that's a huge part of it, this whole Airbnb and the boutique properties.
So, Mr. Wu, we do track Airbnb and the others for room tax collections because they do pay those, and we have data that can be provided on that.
Going back to Mr. Lawson, in the report that you'll get next week, there is a heat map aligned with the information we got from RTIA with their seats. You want to explain what it is?
So we were able to get the seats that are used by the airport and be able to compare that to the room nights that are sold in those geographic locations.
Yes. So Hassan from the RTIA has provided that with us. We've gone through it and so forth. So we've got both non-stops and one-stoppers highlighted on a full map. And if we put the full map up there, you really can't see much. So there's two aspects of it. One is just a map so we can see just the seats that are coming in here, or the number of occupied seats. And then also we overlay it on top of the MSAs with a heat map so we can see the number of room nights that were generated out of that particular area.
When we get the final report, we'll be sending it out to the board members, and it'll be electronic, so you can share it with your marketing and sales departments.
Mr. Fry.
So Howard, I'm glad to hear what I just heard. You're going to overlay, as we get new flights to this community, to measure the impact. Obviously, it takes a while to be able to get accurate numbers. But these are exactly, God bless you, the things. That Highway 80, the numbers of traffic coming from the west, from the east, again, these key indicators, we need to overlay that or put it as part of the mix to see the impact on us, what's happening. So, and what you just said, I mean, this report already indicates to us 3 major markets, Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon. This is fabulous already. It says why we are not increasing our number of visitors from there. Lack of air service, not enough advertising and marketing, poor image. This is, if we can zero on these issues, as we all know, and really find out what the core information is in there that we can get to make a more accurate decision and more precise plans to get the job done, then obviously we have done our job. And again, it is exciting to see what I'm seeing this morning. And I'm going to be checking with our team. I want to see from those markets if we are not seeing as many visitors year over year. Why?
So Ms. Fry, to continue on, I was going to bring that up at the end, but for the participating hotels, and again, without the participating hotels and RSCVA team, we wouldn't be able to do this. So this is a community-wide effort. But there will be a confidential hotel report, because we have the data, it's with us. And so what we do with the individual hotel report is give you all this information, and there's a lot more that you won't see here. Plus, then we also have come up with what we call this effectiveness number. So for example, what I mean by effectiveness number, how good is Atlantis at generating room nights out of LA? Okay, well, probably Silver Legacy has a whole bunch more total room nights out of LA than Atlantis has, because they have twice as many rooms, right? So that's not a very good comparison. But what we do is we normalize it based upon your inventory. So how well or how good is a hotel doing based upon what its availability of resources are, rooms to bring people out of a particular MSA?
Howard, I will do anything if I can get my hands on Peppermill's numbers.
I don't know that the cooperation has quite gone that deep. So, yeah, let me back up here. So one of the takeaways from this, these are a kind of aggregation of the top 5, and then we've got your handout goes under the top 15. But when you start looking at this, the point is that what we have here with the top 5 kind of MSA DMAs, that represents about 70% of the hotel room nights for last year in 2016. That's where it's coming from. So it's pretty close in LA. So this now shows you, it gets really up close and personal. This is where our business is. This is who comes to Reno, Tahoe destination. I mean, as you can see that the darker the red is, the more people and so forth, and yeah, you probably can't determine all that. But when you, at the end of the day, you add all those up, that's the vast majority of people that are coming here. Period, end of story. I mean, it's nice, that folks come from New Orleans and New York and Chicago and so forth. But when we spend our money, this kind of helps underscore what we're looking at. So this is a heat map. This is just the western part of it, and we've got the whole United States, and we'll overlay the RTIA information on it. Anything to add with that? Okay. Yeah. So this, to the Mr. Lawson's question, about what's going on with the airlines, this is Hassan from RTIA asked us to include this, okay? And this gives you a brief idea of what's happened in Reno in 2.5 years. And reason that the RSCVA now is involved in supporting more money going into the kitty to bring the airlines in here. So in 2.5 years, this is what we've added, seat-wise. So now we can overlay this, well, obviously there's some 17 stuff in there, but we can overlay you'll see with the heat map, how many visitors are originating in those particular areas. And also it allows Jennifer and team, when we talk to the airport, to say, here's a good reason for us to have service, because we've got folks coming. So at the end of the day, here's a couple quick points, takeaways that I'd like you to think about. The Reno, Northern Nevada area, non-metro area, our heads and beds room night increased dramatically. And everybody say, yeah, well, I get that. That probably should happen because we've got so many corporate situations. We got, our Trick Towel Regional Industrial Parks going. There's more and more people. If you were at the session with yesterday, when we were talking about how great Reno is and so forth, trying to sell, there's a lot of stuff going on in Reno. We get it. That's good. The only question that I have in the back of my head, a lot of those rooms, and the finance department is going to have to be able to present this, how many of those end up being exempt? So in other words, after 28 days, that's wonderful. We got all those people there, but there's no room tax on it. So yeah, we got a lot of folks coming, but now we're going to start losing all that. And then you look down a little bit further, you see that our drive markets have been really strong. And I talked about short term. I specifically left the San Francisco area out of it. But there's a lot more business. Sacramento's unreal. Stockton, that whole area, you'll see it up to Redding and so forth where we came in. The markets of interest we talked about already. I really think there's a wonderful idea, and to the board we're talking about what's going on there. What is going on? What happened? Can we understand? Can we, as researchers, as interpreters, can we look at this and figure out what's going on so we can address, because we got money to spend, and we're going in those markets, what's happened? Why have those declined a little bit? I get excited about Seattle because as a statistician, as a numbers guy, Seattle has the second highest per capita income on the West Coast, and we have shown through our data that income correlates directly with room nights. Income correlates directly with room nights. Higher income, more room nights, that's good. Seattle is way up there. Seattle's up 27%. That's nice. Why? What are we doing there? What's the message there? Let's get moving. I like to, anyway. And then also the bottom there, I'm sorry. I get excited about these. This is my stuff. But anyway, we've got a little more homework to do along with Canada and Mexico and the international locations, because we just don't have the knowledge of what's coming to Reno from those. We have some of it, but not in depth.
Did we get jet service to Seattle this year, or we still have those Alaska prop? Is only prop? No.
We're working on it. We'll be sharing this information with them.
He's no longer a board member.
Oh, yeah.
John, I can tell you, though, they were here for the last meeting I was at. Nat was there, and they are looking at they just bought a bunch of regional jets, and I think the statistic that came out, now Ben, stay right there. The statistic that came out was that, the feeder airline that Alaska has, Alaska Airlines and then Horizon, Reno is in the top 4 or 5 markets for Horizon. Therefore, it's gonna get jet service. I mean, I think we heard it at the dinner, didn't we, Mayor? Yeah, so I think you're gonna see jets really soon from Seattle. I even believe possibly Portland. So they're gonna retire some of those 400s. So it's good. It's coming. Your son's got to worry about it now.
I gotta talk to him now.
Yeah.
So just a quick wrap up, and I know I got one a little long, but there's some really good stuff here. It's our scorecard, and it's what we're all about. The complete report will be out next week at the overall level, and then the individual hotel reports will be available. They're confidential. They'll be available at the middle of the month. You'll have everybody before we get back together at the board retreat. And for those the hotels that want some special sit-down, Jennifer and I will gladly be there to help interpret and provide the detail behind that.
Great. Any further discussion from the board at this time in regards to the visitor origination analysis? All right. Thank you so much. Looking for a motion to accept the report. Not an action item? Oh, okay. Thank you. Never mind. Thank you, Mr. Olson. Thank you for all your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it. All right, we are on to item F1, request to increase financial support to the Reno Tahoe Regional Air Service Committee, RSCVA. So this is an item that was brought back to the board from previous meeting that Vice Chairman Lawson had discussed about not limiting us to our increase, but being able to, adequately support RSCVA going forward and all the benefits. So I'll open it up for discussion at this time. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say I've not seen a presentation that I can remember from RSCVA since I've been on this board. I do think it would be helpful so we understand the magnitude of how we work in conjunction with them. I understand it's like a marketing arm. I don't know all their full functions, but I do think it would be helpful to see what they're up to and also continue to bring people in the room that are our partners. So I would be looking forward to seeing something.
Absolutely, and just
how we can help them too.
Just last week, Andy Worth stepped down as chair of RSCVA, and Stephen Esquaga will be stepping into that place. So I'll plan something right after the first of the year to give Stephen some time to really get brought up to speed.
Okay, sounds good.
Right.
Great. Mr. Frahi.
Are we voting today to increase the amount we contribute to our service? Okay, if we are going, I'm going to make the motion to go ahead to increase that, please.
Okay, I'll accept the motion in a second. Further discussion, Mr. Murdoch?
What was the amount?
Nope. So we need to actually, we do need to clarify the motion. So we have from 150 up to a maximum of 250,000. So what would your motion be? 250,000?
250, please.
Okay.
250, please.
So the motion, second, so I have a motion for 250, a seconder agrees. Any further discussion at this time? All right, seeing no further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? Motion. Abstain? Abstention? We have an abstention from Mr. Wowo. Motion still carries. All right, we are now on to item G, board member comments regarding items for future meetings. Mr. Nick Carcelli.
We've been discussing the RLEC lately, okay, and we had a meeting on whether or not we were going to subsidize a transfer, sale, et cetera. Nothing really came of it, but what I think did come of it was that I think we all agreed that we should have a group come together of all the players, okay, which were at the meeting there we had a few months ago. But it would be the agriculture department, it would be the rodeo, RSCVA, NRA, any legislators. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the RSCVA would probably be the best entity to take the lead there and bring all these people together. And maybe we can come up with something at the retreat that staff or whatever, we can start bringing those groups or that group together, but that we can have some direction is what we'd like to accomplish. So we can, if we don't lead the charge, the legislators, I mean the next legislature is coming pretty soon. We've got to come up with some kind of idea what can be done with it before then if we're going to get any action. And if we sit around and wait, it's we're going to be sitting here subsidizing and groaning and moaning every time we do something here for capital maintenance or whatever. So that's my suggestion as an item for the retreat. Come up with some hardcore suggestions and direction so we can find out what can be done with the RLEC.
Any further comments? And we'll get some direction going for the RSLEC, and I know that is going to be a topic of conversation, but thank you, Mr. Carasoli, for those comments.
Since we're gonna add items there, just to keep it top of the mind is our legislative platform.
Okay, legislative platform. And then one comment I did want to make to the board, we are going to hold a facilities meeting, a subcommittee of this board, and those members would be Mr. Lawson, myself, Mr. Vineyard, and Mr. Murdoch will be the representatives on the facilities committee to discuss any facilities issues. So those will be the 4 members of the facilities committee. But I agree with Mr. Carasoli. I think if we don't start having some very structured conversations with all the players, such as the state, Reno Rodeo, RSCVA, and the entities involved in RSLEC, we could find ourselves in a position going into next legislative session where the state could just take it back or force us to utilize room tax in ways that we don't get to decide. So we need to have some clear and cognizant discussions with all of those entities involved to make sure that what we're doing is to their interest and to our interest, best interest, so that we don't get caught, so to speak, holding the bag, and move on in a positive direction. So hopefully we can have more of a detailed conversation about that.
We will attempt to get all of those desperate parties together prior to August 24.
Great. All right. Seeing nothing further, we will open up to our last public comment. Do we have any public comments, Madam Clerk? Is anybody in the audience who would like to speak on public comment at this time? Seeing no further public comment, bring it back to the board. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.